Alright, so what I got here is another band photograph, and the band is called These Silhouettes. They're all pretty killer dudes, and as you can see here, this is my favorite take from this crazy idea that I had to have a giant fan blow some paper around, and we actually did a music video based on this picture afterwards. But anyway, I like this picture and all, but as you can see, if we get a little closer, we got a problem here. Everyone in the band is looking at the camera except this dude here, Cody, and you know, I like this take so much that I don't want to get rid of it just because one guy's not looking there. So what I've gone and done is I found another photograph from the shoot with the same lighting and whatnot here, and what I'm going to show you is how to use this face on this photograph. You know, it's really simple, just by cutting it out and basically dropping it in. So what I'm going to do here is just get the lasso tool, you know, and cut it really rough around it. Alright, I'm going to hold control and drag her over to this photo. Okay, position it kind of in place and zoom in nice and close. And since I dragged it on this image, it's going to be on the top layer above it here. You see? So what I can do to position it perfectly is to turn down the opacity and just kind of line up, you know, where the eyes are and where the hair is and whatnot. And I actually see that its head is just a little bit small here, so I can just go to Image, Free Transform, and I'm given a box that I can just drag around. You see? As long as I hold shift while I'm dragging it, the aspect ratio of the box won't change, so meaning that it won't get all warped and crazy like this. Yeah, so I'm just gonna make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, right there looks pretty fitting. Okay. So his face is pretty lined up right now, so I can just turn up the opacity back again and then get the eraser brush, make it nice and small. 100% is okay, and just go back over his hair. And you see his hair from before is coming through, so it's kind of, it looks pretty seamless. On his shirt here, needs a little work, and I also see here now his shoulder is a little too high, so I'm going to actually just drag down his head just a little bit, you know, just to match it up. Nobody's going to know the difference. I'll prove that later. Yeah, looks pretty good, and I can get a nice soft brush again. Just kind of turn a low opacity just to fade in the shirt. You know, even though the stripes don't really match up perfectly, nobody's going to really notice, because I'd rather have this than use a whole different picture from the shoot. And just his neck is also bright, so just if you kind of fade it in a little bit, little by little, it's going to look good. Fix those stripes there. Okay. Now I also see his collar changed a little bit, so I can get a nice kind of almost hard edge brush. Turn it down, just kind of paint in the collar again. And let's see, alright, I'll zoom out, and let's see, and there you have it. Pretty good for a couple minutes of work, and as proof that nobody has ever noticed this, I will go to the band's MySpace. Let's see here. Okay, I'm gonna see the pictures of them. Alright, here's the one I'm looking for. Got 101 comments. So let's scroll down to the comments here. Oh my god, this pic is f***ing hot! Wow, this is great! I love Stewart's hair!
Kick-ass picture.
Awesome picture, I love it!
You guys are like mad friggin' hot, eh? Awesome pic, y'all are so hot. My fave, such an amazing picture.
Yep, so anyway, I guess nobody noticed. Alright, what I got here is a picture I took in Kashmir, India, and I took it early in the morning, about 6 o'clock to be exact. And I took it at a place called the Floating Market, and every morning these vendors row out their boats and vend fruits and vegetables with each other. And I thought it'd be a cool place to take photos, so I was there in the morning on another little boat snapping some pictures, and this is one here that I got of an interesting looking fella. And what I'm going to show you here is how to prepare this image for the web. Now, since this is a huge file, if I look under my image size here, it's I actually took it with the Canon 5D, which is 12.7 megapixels. So it's a huge file. So of course it has to be downsized and sharpened again, because you're taking a huge image and then shrinking it to a very, very small size. But before we do that, I'm going to show you another little trick that I know. If you look at this picture, something is kind of off on it. It looks to me like it's a bit crooked. A little easy way to fix this is you can rotate, of course, in Photoshop, but instead of flicking buttons and guessing numbers and stuff, a little technique that you can do to speed up some time is get this little ruler tool here, measure tool it's called, I guess, and you zoom in and try to find a part of the picture that would be straight. So for this, I'm going to use this top of the roof here in the background. So I'm zoomed in here. What I'm going to do using this measure tool is go from one end and click and drag this across to the other end and click, and then that here shows how level the picture is. And then when I go to image, rotate canvas, this, now it'll tell me what angle that line is on, so I can just immediately click OK, and automatically Photoshop will just correct it for me. So now if I zoom out, that there looks a little bit straighter. So now I can crop that. But I see one problem with this, is that when I crop and get rid of all the white, I'm kind of messing up my picture, because here I'm cropping off a little bit of the boat, and here I'm cropping off a little bit of the paddle, and I'm getting a bit too tight from what I want. So it's not a problem really. I'm just going to crop it and leave a little bit of white space that I'm going to fix, same as on this side. That looks pretty good there. Now, this is a photojournalism picture, so on my website, when I have this picture up, I didn't do this because it's just a personal thing. I don't really like to, because I don't really like to change anything or alter photojournalism. But what you can do is same old duplicate a layer, and using the clone tool, you can zoom in really close. Set a bigger diameter. And you can hold Alt and click and just clone a little bit over the edge. Now this is just totally cheating in the picture, but I can assure you, if you do a good job, nobody will ever know. Got a little bit of the paddle there. And just watch out for repeating patterns like that, because that'll kind of give you away. Yeah, it's not a bad clone job for a couple seconds. I'm sure if it was something that I was going to get printed or something like that, I'd spend a little bit more time on it, but I'm sure you get the idea here. And just pay attention to the way shapes go. This little part is sloping down this way, so I'm just going to just follow it. There we go. Get a bigger brush for this big color here. Little trick too to make the brush bigger and a little bit bigger and smaller on the keyboard is you press this key to make it bigger and this key to make it smaller, and that's just default in Photoshop. That'll save some time. But I just like to do it on the screen for this tutorial, just so people understand what brush dimensions I'm choosing. There, so that's looking pretty good. Again, I could spend a little bit more time on it so it's not so choppy, but it's pretty good for this purpose anyway. Alright, so now that I have it nice and level, I can go ahead and flatten it. Then I can shrink it down. Good size for the web that I use is about 700 pixels. That way no one can steal your picture and make prints or anything, but it's still viewable. Anyway, so now I'm going to sharpen it. So what I do for that is I go layer, duplicate, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm going to run an unsharp mask filter on it. Now, despite the name unsharp, it does make pictures sharp. I don't know. I don't really understand the name. I think it comes from an old darkroom practice or something. But I know it threw me off when I first read about it. Anyway, good radius. I use about 0.7 pixels. This is just telling it to what degree to sharpen it. And the amount here is how much to sharpen it at that degree. Threshold looks best at about 3 for this kind of size of picture. Anyway, so I'm going to just drag this amount, and ooh, that's a bit too much, and I'm just going to go and see to look what's right for most of the picture. That's pretty good without overdoing it. Okay. But one thing I notice is I get these jaggedy edges. Now I'm a perfectionist, and this kind of thing makes me mad. So I'm just going to get the eraser brush and just go over these jaggies a little bit. In there. Now that looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit File, Save for Web. Now in this little box here you see that it's preset to 63% quality. I think that's just because it's what I used last time. But if you notice, there's not a big difference between 100% quality and like 60% quality. But as soon as you get a little bit lower, you start to notice the artifacts and the compression. So I usually keep it about 60% quality, and that way it keeps it good enough for the web, but also the file size down. And then all you do is hit save and choose your destination. And like any art piece or photograph or whatever, you gotta have some balance in the color. So I'm gonna duplicate the layer and pretend that this background here was just a little bit blue. And of course, I'm sure you could do this with the strobes and just, you know, put some gels over them or something. But you know, this is just much easier and saves time, especially if you didn't think of it during the shoot. Got my eraser brush here and just going over the edges. There you go, and it's a little bit too blue, just like I first did the eye, so I'm going to tone it down just a little bit. And even if you don't really notice the blue cast, subconsciously to the viewer who first looks at it, it adds a little bit more drama to the eyes, and that's the first place where I look in any picture, really. So it really enhances that they're blue. All right, one last thing before I go that I noticed that, you know, I kind of messed up on. So if you look into the eyes, what's wrong? I got a catch light in this eye, but not so much in this eye. And to me, it kind of makes his eyes look funny, but it's no problem. I'm going to get my lasso tool here, make a selection around this catch light. Then I'm going to right click it and hit layer via copy. And what that'll do is copy exactly what I just selected onto a new layer with nothing else on it. Just like I dragged the darker raw conversion on top of the light one. It's going to hold control and just drag this over to the other eye. Position it in the same place as the other catch light. Hit apply. And I can get the eraser brush and just go over those kind of rough edges. position it, you know, fine tune it a little bit. And also just turn the opacity down because this eye is a little bit away from the camera, so the catch light wouldn't be as strong. And looking at both eyes, I can kind of judge where the light would be. And yeah, about there looks pretty good for me. And to me, that just makes the eyes look a little bit better. Alright, looking good. I'm going to flatten it. And of course, finally, here you have it, the finished product. And I mean, I could go for hours just tweaking this, tweaking that, changing a little bit here, changing a little bit there, and I guess it would end up looking a little bit different every time. But that's basically it. And you can use all the techniques I just taught you, but apply them in the best ways that are going to help the specific picture that you're working on.